In this lesson, you will learn how we can run profile and monitoring tests and notify users when issues occur and SLAs are not met. When data and performance deviates from the expected behavior, it is important to notify the data team as soon as possible. Tosca DI is set up to run in test environments to check validations and business logic in different layers. Tosca DI only requires read access to the data as no changes are made. This means a subset of these tests, such as monitoring and profiling, can run in production without impacting any data. Here is our environment, and this is the table we will monitor. In our example, we want to check that if a facility receives more than a set threshold, which is our count, for patient star ratings of either 1 or 2, this will trigger an investigation into the facility as the standards may be too low. If the monitoring test fails, we want to create a report, add the facility ID, the low rating count, and the time it took to execute the query, which may relate to performance issues in our environment. We will do this by adding to the spreadsheet. If we go back into Tosca DI, and here we're in our monitoring section, I've already created my template and my data sheet. You can see the test starts off by starting a timer to monitor the query time. It will then run the query, connect to Snowflake and our table, which is all parameterized. We will check to see if it's above the set threshold. If it is, then everything will be fine. If it's below, it will fail. The query timer will then stop, and that will be saved. Based on the count for the hospital ratings, we will then compare that to the threshold again, but this time if it's lower and it meets that criteria, we're using a condition to say it's lower than the set threshold. So open up my workbook, go to the right tab. Based on the facility ID, which is parameterized, it will add the hospital rating and the query time. It'll then save the workbook and close it. After that, we will connect to a mail server and we can notify a set group of users of the issue. You can see I'm also pointing to my workbook, which can be uploaded into the email and sent off so people have all the information right away. If I go back to my monitoring test, you can see all my different instances, and this relates to my data-driven test sheet here. For now, let's just run the first one. I'll open up my reports. The query will run and the workbook should be updated. I can open up the ratings workbook again, and you can see we now have a new entry and the time it took the query to run. If I come back to Tosca, we will also see that in the results. It indicated a failure, and the expected was below the actual threshold. It updated the report, and it would email the group of users. As you can see, within Tosca we also have trend charts, so these tests running on a continuous basis can be monitored, and you can see the trends. Once our data engineers and business users have created their tests across the warehouse, we combine our tests into a single execution list to be integrated with schedulers, build tools, and to run continuously in our pipeline, giving us that much needed immediate feedback.